So morning everyone, thank you for joining us this morning. Today's event is in partnership with us, Barnsley Chamber, and our colleagues at Sheffield Chamber. There's myself and Sam Christmas on the call, who I'm sure you'll know. So today's webinar is going to be presented by Dan and Carl at Objective Creative, who I think the majority of you might know. And if not, Dan and Carl will kind of welcome people a little bit later on once I've finished my spiel, so to speak. Dan, who's the MD of the business, has more than 20 years experience from a B2B marketing point of view, both in the UK and internationally. He's developed and implemented successful marketing strategies on behalf of hundreds of leading PLCs and ambitious SMEs across the region and also nationally. So Dan's going to cover a number of areas today, including the main title on how to generate more sales leads through effective B2B marketing. And we'll also go into detail about the 50% grant funding to support your marketing. We did talk to Dan and Carl just before we let you all guys in the call, and they've had some good successes, which I'm sure they'll touch on, where they've been supporting businesses across the region. So before I pass over to Dan and Carl, I'd like to let you know that we always record these webinars, especially the knowledge-based webinars, because we send them out through the Chamber network afterwards, and we pop them on the website and on our YouTube channels as well. So if you miss anything during this, you can always recap and look back at it. So all participants will be muted except for Dan and Carl. However, if you do have any questions, we want it to be as interactive and as engaging as possible. So please pop them in the conversation chat box or raise your digital hand, and Sam and myself will pick them up as we go. So over to you, Dan and Carl, if you want to share your screen and start the ball rolling. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. So yeah, it's a little bit different to the one we did in the heart of lockdown. It all feels a little bit more like everyone's on their feet now, and we're back in the office. So I'm in our marketing offices, and Carl's just next door in our studio. So we'll be running through the presentation. We'll take any questions at the end, and there's also an opportunity if you want any one-on-one questions about your marketing challenges and opportunities, then we'll do that afterwards as well through a Zoom call or through a telephone call. So whatever works best for everyone. But thank you for your time this morning. What we're trying to do is really give people some hints and tips that they can take away and help with their marketing themselves. And then if there's anything that pricks your attention and you'd like to work with an agency, then hopefully you know more about us, and we're here to help if needed. So in terms of what today's webinar is about, we'll be looking at the key points that we get of developing an effective marketing strategy, so how we can positively respond to everything that's happening in the world at the moment, how we can produce content that positions you as thought leaders in your sector, some of the proven methods to generate more sales leads, so that's where we get quite technical and use some of the digital marketing principles, and then we'll end with details on the grant funding. There's funding that's available through ourselves as an agency to chamber members, and then there's external funding which is available as well, that's limited to certain sectors, so we can talk to you about both of those. In terms of a bit of background to ourselves, so my name is Dan Broadbent. I'm the Managing Director at Objective Creative. I've worked predominantly in the UK, but also in the Middle East for a number of years as well. The big difference between what we do and what most agencies do is that we focus on business-to-business marketing. So although we could produce a website or deliver a digital project on behalf of a B2C business, our specialism is on B2B, and that's where most of our experience is, and we've helped hundreds of businesses from that area. Carl, this is where I actually let you speak. So Carl runs our creative and digital teams.
So I've been working in agencies throughout the region for the last 20 years or so, from a creative background, but then more so into the digital areas. Not quite got as far as Dan. Dan got to the Middle East. I got up to Leeds for.
Well, that's far enough for anyone, sure.
Yeah, well, you know, working in studios in Leeds. Mainly for B2B clients with some public sector, as Dan mentioned earlier. I also contribute to regional and national creative and mainly digital conferences around digital marketing best practices, SEO and PPC.
So I know people are particularly interested, especially at this time, with regards to grant funding. There's lots of businesses that have ambitions to grow their sales through marketing as we come out of the lockdown restrictions, but we do know that cash flow at times is tight. What we've done is we've teamed up with a partner to be able to access up to 50% match funding for marketing projects. And we'll just talk a little bit about which businesses can apply for that funding. So it's through the Manufacturing Growth Programme. 43% grants are available that you can claim, and we can put you in touch with Marcus and the team there who will be able to process those grants. So won't go into all the terms and conditions of that, partly because it's not our programme and partly because we've got a lot to get through. But if you are from the manufacturing sector, then the 43% funding could very well be available to you. What we've decided as well is that to give you an added reason to partner with us, we'll top that up to 50%. So there's 43% from the Manufacturing Growth Programme, an additional 7% from Objective Creative. So the 50% match funding is for people in the manufacturing sector in this region. We wanted to have something for everyone though, so what we're also saying that we will do is if you're from any other sector and you were to commission a project with Objective, then we will give 25% by means of a reduction from our rate card. So there's up to 25% for everyone and then 50% for the manufacturing growth sector. There's also an opportunity to claim a complimentary marketing consultation. We do know that people will have opportunities to answer questions at the end of the session, but if there's something quite specific to your business or you just want a second opinion, then we can offer you a complimentary marketing consultation. We've got 10 that we're going to give to people exclusively after the seminar today. They can be used for anything. So we do have people that speak to us about their marketing strategy. They just want another pair of eyes to have a look at their strategy. That's completely fine. We'll talk about any of your marketing challenges or opportunities. There are also some quite tangible deliverables. So if you want a technical audit of your website, that will highlight any of the required fixes on your site. We've got some software which can be best described as being as similar to Google's algorithm as possible. It scans your website and identifies elements that need to be taken care of to improve your optimization and user experience. So that's available. We can also give you some recommendations and analysis on SEO and PPC if you're wanting to drive either medium or short-term, medium with SEO and short-term leads with PPC, or if you just want to chat about marketing as well and how you come back from everything that's happened over the past few months, then we're here to help on that. So do let us know if you could benefit from a consultation at the end of the session. Couple more minutes just on us and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of this morning. So as I've said, we're a B2B marketing agency, everything under one roof here in the centre of Sheffield. We're a team of 12. It's strategy, creative and digital. Not just us saying that we're good, although we do say that a lot. The Recommended Agency Register is an independent survey of marketing clients, and we're very pleased and grateful that our clients have given us feedback to get into that Recommended Agency Register for I think 7 years now, Carl.
Yeah, come to 8. Yeah, after
don't look old enough. Services that we deliver in-house, I won't go through them all, but all of the services are really designed from a strategic position to position yourself as a thought leaders in your industry, and from a practical day-to-day position to generate more business-to-business leads for your business. That's often what people like most about the service. And in terms of Google AdWords and Analytics, Carl and his creative digital team are certified to the highest level available from Google. So that does give us an insight into not only today, but what's going to be happening in the future, because within their programme, we do get to hear about things before the rest of the industry would. And you've been in a number of national conferences of late, mainly virtually, Brighton SEO being the most recent one.
Yeah, I missed out on my annual migration down to Brighton this year.
The expenses are a lot good though, to be honest.
Yeah. But no, it was some really interesting sessions there that we've been part of and been contributing to, mainly around sort of website optimization, security and speed, and also where Google are giving more prominence to those areas, and also where the ad platform's going. So again, it was part of something just a couple of days ago, looking at Google rolling out their shopping platform across the world. starting in the US and into the UK as a free service. So it sort of falls more into the realms of SEO rather than paid promotion. So that's going to be quite interesting when that comes across. And also the new digital taxes, something we've been part of as well, just discussing how that's going to be passed on. So again, it's something that we need to get prepared for and let clients know who are spending on PPC that there's going to be some small additional increases in charges from Google as they very kindly pass on those digital taxes.
Yeah. So anything you want to know with regards to digital, then we can ask those questions at the end or privately through consultations, and we'll do our very best to help. On the digital side, we're also we're recognised by Sheffield Hallam University as the local agency they picked to deliver their master's programme. So we deliver on their digital marketing master's programme in entire modules. It just gives the students a good insight into the working world, and it also gives us an insight into what 21 and 22-year-olds are doing when it comes to digital technology. So it's beneficial for everyone, but it's a nice recognition from the university, and we've got some interesting projects lined up, and some of them face-to-face, some of them virtual as the times change. And finally, just some of the people that we work with. So hopefully, depending on the size of your business, you'll see somebody similar to yourself. So there's SMEs, anything from very small local companies with ambitions to grow, through to some of the biggest companies in the world there as well. Right, so that's the advert over. In terms of what we want to go through then, it's all focused around generating more sales leads through our B2B marketing approach. So I just wanted to start a little bit with a few facts that we've pulled together that really show the current climate. So Campaign magazine, which is one of the industry leading magazines, they've done a study within the last couple of months which shows that marketing budgets have fallen at the fastest rate since 2009. There's definitely signs of recovery. I would say within our client base, there are times, certainly when we were in March and April, where I'd say a good 25% or so of clients did pull back on their marketing spend because of everything else that was happening in the world at the time, and cash flow and such. Now, I think it's true to say that virtually everyone is back to at least before pandemic levels of activity, because that genuinely is the right thing to do. At these times, you should be maintaining that marketing spend or increasing the marketing spend to take advantage of the opportunities. I suppose the IPA they're saying that when others go quiet, your voice should get louder, and that makes a lot of sense. That if you have competitors who are unable or unwilling to market at this time, then there'll be more room in the market for your sales messages. Harvard Business School is the third reference that I've used. And that's really them summarising the same, really saying that businesses that maintain the marketing spend during the crisis are those that emerge from the downturn with increased market share. And if you look back to the Great Depression or the aftermath of any conflict or any financial crisis, you will see many examples of brands that have done very well by continuing the momentum, and those that have fallen by the wayside by unfortunately not doing so. But in terms of the marketing message that we put across, then that does need to adapt, in our opinion. So we shouldn't be embarrassed about selling, but I think some aggressive sales messages are still not really appropriate. What we've been doing is trying to encourage our clients to be as empathetic and supportive, and to be seen as thought leaders during that time. So we're just showing you a little example on screen of the kind of messaging which one of our clients in the service sector is using to say they can help people through any of the challenges they might have during the COVID-19 downturn. So it's really about being a friend as much as it is about having an aggressive sales message. That's often the case anyway, but it's never more true than now, making sure that we're compassionate with our marketing messaging. And that's all about building your brand. And I think the good news for those of us working in the B2B sector is that if you do invest in your brand, then B2B brands are proven to keep their value much more than B2C brands. So if you look on screen, there's a number of brands that I'm sure that will be familiar to you. So Microsoft is the first on the list. So there's an estimate of what their brand is worth. That comes from the perceived value of working with a brand like Microsoft. And that's and they've invested in that brand, and they've done so for a very good reason. Because if you look at the same list of B2B brands and the value of B2B brands, only 14 of the top 20 B2B brands in 2006 are still ranked in the top 20 today, whereas only 8 of the top 20 B2C brands are in that same list. So you can see that the longevity of a B2B brand, if you can invest in creating the right messaging around it, is so much more than it would be with our friends on the B2C side of things. So what we're really saying there is, irrespective of the size of your business, then investing in your brand is very important. And within B2B, it is a long-term investment as well. And how do we do that? So we're probably all on board with it being something that we should be doing, but how do we do that? Well, we see it as being a combination of engaging messaging and creative, of successful campaigns, and using the right channels. So those three, the graphic we've got on the right hand of the screen, those three different elements come together to ensure that a brand can be promoted in the most effective method. The most important one that we're going to start on, though, is on the messaging and the branding side, because the messaging is something that is often overlooked. So how do we do that? Well, we've got to start with planning. So we always say that a good agency or a good marketeer does probably 50% of the work in the planning. It's not about necessarily taking to the Mac and coming up with the most creative design. It's about making sure that we fully understand who it is that we're marketing to. So the first point is on identifying our key audiences. So looking at who it is that we're wanting to engage. And that might have changed for some businesses since March. So if you've pivoted slightly because one of your core traditional audiences isn't necessarily in a position to buy at the moment, then bear that in mind when you look at your marketing messages. Because if the audience changes, there's a very good chance that the messaging and branding will need to adapt and evolve with it. Also need to look at what our competitors are doing. So what are your competitors saying? What are your competitors doing? And do you want to compete with them head on, or do you want to be an alternative to, you know, the generic messaging that's out there in the marketplace? There are occasions that people can go head on and be successful in that. But for lots of clients, it's about finding unique selling points that make people choose their business rather than a competitor. So for ourselves, to give an example, within marketing agencies, then there are probably another 6 or 7 agencies of similar type to us in terms of size, in terms of credentials, in terms of client base. But of those, none of the others are specialists within business to business. So the obvious point of difference that we promote is our business to business specialism. To say to our customers, why would you go with a generalist when you can go with a specialist? So that's an example of how you can see that there are differences that you can actually promote through the strategic stage.
I think also, Dan, to add to that, lots of clients come to us, and I'm sure that, you know, most businesses can anecdotally or in the real world sort of reel off a list of what they see as their competitors. And I'm sure a lot of the time that's absolutely right. We've all got the ones that sort of thorns in our side, and ones we always seem to come up against in a competitive tender situation, for example. But online that can be different. Because the real world competitors may differ from the actual digital competitors. And what I mean by that is that when you type in one of your target keywords into a search engine, the people that are displayed there might be totally different to the real world competitors that you find yourself up against on sometimes a day-to-day basis. So making sure that we're also taking note of those differences and making sure that online ties into the real world, and we're taking that head on and completing that list. So we've got a full picture of our online competitors and our offline competitors. And a lot of the time there's overlap, but sometimes there isn't. And sometimes it's a surprise when we say to clients, actually, for this keyword, your main competitor is company Y, and they've never really heard of them. But obviously their customers are going to find them because they're searching for them online.
And that's often even more of a reason to make sure that you bring out the USPs that are unique to yourself, because the way people select who to contact online is they will do a Google search, and often people may go to 2 or 3 companies so they can really do some diligence, and they'll often choose the one with a slightly different, unique message, and then 2 that are a part of the crowd. So to give the example of ourselves, then we rank number 1 for marketing agency Sheffield, and there are a couple of other people that go know, 2 and 3 that may not be real world competitors to us, but are certainly online competitors. So it's all about us making sure there's reasons we give people to make sure we're on that list, because without being on the short list, then you can't win the business. In terms of messaging, we'll give you a few examples of how of things you can do with your own website and with your own marketing collateral that really will elevate the messaging. So on screen you see a section of a homepage for one of our clients, a client called Nexus. They operate a software platform that allows business-to-business customers to choose the best, choose and manage the best fleet solutions for their business. So they work with Royal Mail, PepsiCo, but then down to very small SME businesses too. So the kind of messages that we've introduced here, the most important ones are around what people do. So you can see there's the stay in touch section there. Behind there, there is a central message which we'll go through on the next slide. There's ways of keeping in contact. So the stay in touch being the most prominent, but you have a call to action on the top right, which allows people to get straight through with their inquiry. And then there's one on the bottom left as well. So people knowing what you do and also knowing how to get in touch with you are the two most important things. And if you look at your website, don't scroll down, just load it up in a browser and just ask yourself, is it clear exactly what we do, what makes us different, and can somebody contact us either in one click or get the telephone number they need without any work at all? Lots of websites do not do that, and that is really sort of marketing 101. That's something that we would say you could easily change through your content management system or through some cost-effective changes to your website to make sure that you pass that first test. The second one, so if you go down the page, these are the 3 key messages that we've developed with this customer. So it's very much about reasons to use, reasons to commission Nexus. So the 3 different panels you have there, supported by their client portfolio, is really there to win the trust of the customer. So when you look at your website or your marketing channels, one of the recommendations we would make is to make sure that you're clearly giving people reasons to choose you. Rather than, I think this is something that B2B businesses don't do as much as B2C. B2C marketing is often very much, it's normally 5-10 years ahead in many cases of where B2B is, and we're trying to bridge that gap. So what we would say is make sure that you're giving people some very clear call to action and some very clear reasons to choose your business. And then beneath that, we go into some more rich content. So each of those panels, if you were to click through on each of those panels, you will see video, you'll see audio, podcast, infographics, blogs, moving images. This is where we can really be seen as thought leaders. So again, it's about making sure your website messaging gives people some content that they can really get the teeth into, because those that really stay want to be convinced that you are the experts on the area that you actually are actually promoting. So it's the ability to give people content which is rich and engaging. And more than anything, and this is the biggest difference between the B2B and B2C side of things, is tell a story. So if you look at a consumer advertisement, it's very clear that rather than just explaining what the company does and giving you a price and a call to action, there's that emotional trigger, which is around telling a story and giving people the reason to really believe in that brand. So there are examples at the moment. Coca-Cola is a good one, where Coca-Cola essentially sell water, you know, and chemicals and sugar in a bottle. But their current campaign is a guy who's on screen with the Coke talking about how the world is changing and how we can reimagine a better world after COVID. Not an obvious link between that and the sugary drink, but what they're doing there is positioning the Coca-Cola story as one that their customers can engage with, because they realise, especially with a younger demographic, that there's an appetite for change. There's a lot of social change and social movements, and they want to be a part of that solution. So that's an extreme example. I'm not saying that if we're making tooling bits that we necessarily have to go that far, but we should be telling the story as to how the business was formed. What are the values? Is it a family business? Is it a business with a particular aspiration to give back to its community? Is it a business with a goal to be an innovator. They're the sort of things that we should be talking about. So within our website, we talk about how we set up the business, and when we go back now, sort of 8 or 9 years, the conversations that Carl and I had that led to us starting the business, because we feel if people can buy into the passion, then hopefully they will buy into the product. And I think it's worth knowing that 40% of B2B buyers are aged between 18 and 34, and they're in a scenario where they're seeing stories every day on social media and in the media that their content they consume online. So just because somebody's buying something for their business, they're still a person. We're still selling to a person. We're not selling to a business. And I think that's something that we shouldn't forget, that often we look at our customers purely as the businesses they represent, rather than looking at them as being people that actually make consumer choices on a day-to-day basis. They don't necessarily deal with that choice differently if they're buying a new cup for their home or if they're buying a machine for their business. So it's something to bear in mind. We're involved with a marketing week event recently, and I've just put up there what I thought was quite a poignant point that came out of the debate, really. B2B marketeers need to stop selling and start inspiring, bringing more emotion to content production rather than just promotion. And I think finally, with SME businesses as well, one of the reasons that we don't always tell as good stories is because we're perhaps a little bit too humble and we're not wanting to shout about what it is that makes us great as businesses. And I do think that's something, because we work with lots of larger clients, that larger corporates that have all this nailed, and they might not always be doing everything that we're saying they're doing. Whereas with SMEs, they're genuinely passionately doing everything, but they're not always shouting about it, and there's a missed opportunity there. Carl, can I take a breath now?
Yeah, please.
Go to digital.
Thanks, Dan. Obviously, never more poignant than in the current times, especially the last few months. There's been a big focus on digital. We've seen lots of clients coming to us, lots of our clients saying, usually we go to, a couple of trade shows or we go to events, and a lot of the time that can be their main sales channel per year. We'll go to 2 or 3 events, meet the buyers, and that's where conversations start and deals are done. More and more traffic, more and more marketing spending is going online, because obviously it really suits the current economic situation. And Google's still the major player. They're still getting 2/3, if not more, of search traffic. This number is only going one way. 2 trillion Google searches are going to be made this year. I think that's going to go way above that, to be honest, over the last few months, with how things have been going. And also how we're actually using the internet and devices is changing quite rapidly. Think about how my son, I've got a 13-year-old son, I've never seen him type in a Google search. He just presses the Siri button on his phone, or on his Mac, and he's actually searching via voice. And it's something we've probably all done or at least seen in a small way, and that's growing, that voice search. It's not growing as quickly as some predicted a few years ago, but there's definitely a growing number of people searching by voice, and that's a really important thing to consider, because we type in shorthand. If you're looking for a restaurant in Sheffield, an Italian restaurant in Sheffield, you might put Italian restaurant Sheffield, type it into a search engine. When you're doing that into your mobile, you may say something like, tell me where the best Italian restaurant is in Sheffield, or what's the best rated Italian restaurant in Sheffield. So a much more longhand than shorthand when we're using voice to search. So really that's going to have big effects on the SEO community and how we actually optimize websites to display those results, and how to give that information to consumers when they're really searching in a very different way. Also, digital marketing is superb at actually proving and showing ROI. So a lot of the time we advise clients when they're looking at things like SEO, which is, as Dan mentioned earlier, is very much a medium to long-term investment in a business. So appearing naturally in search results. PPC, or pay-per-click marketing, is something that if you're looking for something more short-term or very immediate, PPC is almost always the way to go. Along with working your actual business, new business data with HTML or direct marketing. But PPC is a great way to test the relevance of traffic and the quality of leads and conversions generated via digital channels. So if it can take sort of 6, 9, 12 months to rank highly for a term organically, within a few weeks or a few months, we can see if the search terms that we think are going to generate the right type of conversions and leads are working or not. We can actually try them via PPC. And it's not about the amount of conversion. I mean, we spoke very recently to a client who said, I don't care if I get 10 leads rather than 100, as long as 5 or 6 of those leads are the right type of lead. Because generating leads isn't the most difficult part. Generating the right type of leads is. It's about a combination of creativity, measurable data, and technology. We have some quite freaky technology at the minute where we can see what other advertisers are spending, the type of words they're optimizing for, and really help our clients keep ahead of that curve. So really, rather than starting a campaign sort of at the very, very early stages and a lot of testing and a lot of data analysis, we can jump the gun and start the campaigns with a little bit more knowledge and insight, so we can do more of what works and less of what doesn't.
I think I probably have to point in the current climate as well of not always falling into the trap of saying, because we tried something 6 months ago pre-pandemic, that it won't work now. That a lot of things have changed dramatically in such a short period of time. So there will be campaigns that weren't cost effective before March that now, if we look at again, it's worth at least doing the diligence and looking and seeing if that PPC campaign will deliver. Likewise though, there will be others that worked in March that don't now, because the cost per click has changed, the demand has changed, the appetite and ability to spend has changed. So I think what we're saying is, I was on a call with Microsoft, and this was the point they were making from their data. And I think the big message is to just take a step back and just look at what you're doing now, because what worked in February might not be the best solution in September.
And I think also, Dan, when you filled me in on that call, you can't really rely on the last 3 months' data.
Yeah.
Plus, we're in uncertain, unprecedented, uncharted times. So, looking the other way on that, relying on what happened between sort of March and August, isn't necessarily the right foundations for moving forward. No. People are now returning, as we've seen, children are back to school, people are returning to the office a little bit more. Maybe not in the way they did before the lockdown, but people are returning in a different way, maybe on a part-time basis. So how they search, how they procure services and products has changed. So let's look, like Dan said, it's definitely worth asking your agency or if you're managing yourself to look at comparing the last quarter to the quarter before and really to see what's changed and what can be improved.
Microsoft was saying that during the lockdown period, the amount of desktop searches increased. And one of the theories for that is, there is a generation of people that weren't necessarily using online search as often, who perhaps don't have the mobile devices and are doing so on a desktop. But also, and I don't think this could ever happen, Carl, but people might have been doing searches while they were working at home. So that's something else that is to consider. So yeah, I think that the message is, let's take a look, step back. Now's the time to have a review. Also,
once we've worked hard to get those visits, the right type of traffic to our website, again, a lot of the time, lost the count of the amount of times that we've looked at and done analysis on someone's PPC, whether that's paid through Google or via social or LinkedIn, taking people to bespoke pages. So not just the homepage of the website, which is the biggest sin. The second biggest sin, the contact page. If we're asking people to put 2 and 2 together, a lot of the time they're going to get 5. So let's make it really, really simple. If someone's going to search, for example, a campaign working at the minute about air compressors, for example, take them to a page that's solely about air compressors and all the features and benefits and your full offer on that one area of business. We can mention other and try and cross-sell towards the bottom of that page, but we want people to come to that page and see that we're the expert in, for example, air compressors, not a whole plethora of products they've got to sift through to find the air compressors, and making it really easy for them to actually get in touch and get the information that they need. So we don't want to give them too much or too little. And also there's a sort of a few golden rules that we always apply to those campaigns, especially the landing pages. I'm just going to sift through now so you can take some notes and see if your PPC campaigns are using some of these techniques. So the first one, and sorry, apologies if these sound really obvious, but again, it's usually the obvious things that get overlooked. People spend a hell of a lot of time adding tons and tons and tons of keywords and lots of ads and don't get the mechanics right. So I've yet to meet someone who enjoys filling in forms. If you do, please shout up, but no one does. So keep them short, keep them simple. Don't ask them for the size of their business, all the different 7 or 8 different questions, unless you really, really need information. There's some businesses need more information than others to try and pre-qualify leads, but ask for the absolute bare minimum. Do we need to know someone's company, position, job title, how long they've been in the business, size of business? We don't need all that. We just need someone's name to contact and a way of contacting them. So again, there's no need to make the phone number and email a required element. Just make one of them so we can get in contact with them in whichever way they want us to.
And if you do need additional information, think about stepping the form.
Yeah,
so if people have the first step of the form and that has the information where you have a short form lead, then if they go through to a second section of the form and they don't complete that information, at least they've given you the permission to contact them with the important contact details, their name, their email or telephone number. So step in the form could also help.
Absolutely. And then touching on the order of information, I mean, the amount of times where the last thing that's asked for is the contact details, as Dan just said. So, you know,
or permissions.
Step 5 of 6, the board, and we've lost them. We don't know who it is. So there's some technology that can track some people, but let's ask for the really important information we need up front, and then step through the process and ask just the information we need. But also the calls to action, so the buttons we're using, their colour, their position, and the message we put there. I mean, submit is, you know, as clinical and cold and standard as it gets. So let's look at actually giving the person a reason why they should give you the information or give you their sales lead. So in fact, they're going to get a free instant quote. So we're telling them straight away, there's no obligation. It's a positive message. And again, these small, subtle changes do make a difference to conversion rates. Absolutely. We want some important content that we need needs to be above the fold. So the fold being on the average of what someone sees on their screen before they scroll down. So when people use the terms above the fold, it's what's seen on a screen before anyone has to scroll. So make sure we've got all the important information there. So the phone number is no good if it's just in the footer. Our headline obviously wants to be at the top of the page. We've seen lots of times where forms have been right down the page and we're going on about how great the product is and services, and then the form's right at the very, very bottom. So make sure all the important information is above that fold line, and anything else that's not as important, again, steps down the page in the hierarchy.
And a really simple way of looking at it is that this form is your shop window, so don't make it hard to get through the door. That's really the important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as Dan touched on earlier, almost all of us are using mobile to access email, so making sure they're and ads, but also the actual websites themselves. So if someone's clicking through on mobile, again, make sure that those forms are really well optimized and the user journey is really seamless and usable on a mobile device. And that can be anything from the size of the field, so you can't really touch them or click into them. That can be really, really frustrating, to the website and the form not being designed in a responsive way. So you have to scroll up and down and pinch and zoom and all sorts. So let's make it as simple as we can and make it easy for someone to give us that really, really important information that we've paid to try and get. Also, making sure that we don't provide an escape route. So best practice with landing pages is to make sure that it's just information relating to the user's search, and we're giving them no way to link out and go over and look at someone else or look at the rest of your website. We just want to get that lead. There's no way out. They either give us the information or they're off. So that's really what we want to do, making sure they can't go anywhere else, can't compare, can't start wandering around your site and looking. They can always open a new tab, absolutely, so a bit more diligence, but we want just that sole purpose on the landing page of giving them really, really concise, detailed information to convince them that you're worth speaking to regarding their search.
So we're getting to the end of the presentation. We are very aware that we need to leave some time for questions and people will have other priorities after 11 o'clock today. It's really difficult also to be able to pitch this at the right level, because we'll have people that are experienced marketing directors on the call and people that are new to marketing. So please do bear in mind, if there's any specific questions, then please do take advantage of the consultation at the end, because we can tailor our responses to the level of expertise that we require. A lot of our work is at board level with businesses, so that's something we particularly enjoy, looking at your specific marketing challenges and opportunities. But just a few final points on how you can kickstart sales, just reminders. I spoke a lot about brand messaging. Do look at those unique reasons that people should choose your business, and sense check whether any of them may have changed after March through to today. we've seen that there's some clients that are actually watering down their offer slightly, in that they're actually discounting. They're using price as the promotion rather than reasons to choose that organisation. What we would very much say is only do that if you're comfortable with that being the long-term solution. We think that really what we should be doing is giving people unique reasons to choose you as a business for what you can offer them, rather than it all being price-led. Because unless there's a particular reason that your service is worth less today than it was in February, that shouldn't really be the primary message that we put forward through marketing. You can only really know that if you know who the audience is that you're wanting to engage are. So please do identify your prospects, do your audience research, profile your audiences. That's something that an agency can help with. Sometimes it's easier because we're a little further away from that end result, that end audience, but it is possible to do yourself if you put your mind to it. So that's something that we would say is really important to do. Plan your marketing channels, so don't just be reactive and take the first opportunities as they come to you. We should really be looking at why we're wanting to use certain marketing channels. So the best example of that is we quite often have people say we want to do something on social media without looking at what social media, for what purpose, and are the audiences we want to engage with on particular channels. So it's often going to form a part of the marketing mix, but there should be a lot of consideration given more to what the message is, who the audience is, and what the desired outcome is, and then look at marketing channels rather than looking at marketing channels first. And then the final point is capitalise on opportunities that are more digital. So at the moment, there are restrictions around lots of face-to-face events, lots of traditional sales generation channels. Now is a good time for lots of businesses to become more digital in their marketing. We're not an agency that would say that traditional is dead. It certainly isn't. There are good reasons to use traditional direct marketing through the post, for example, but we should be able to find an alternative method of generating your leads online, be it through PPC with immediate aim or through SEO with a more medium-term strategy. And don't forget, there is 50% match funding available to some businesses. That's third-party funding, and it's aimed at the manufacturing sector. So if you've joined the call a little late, and then we can tell you more about it afterwards. But 43% from the Manufacturing Growth Programme and 7% from ourselves makes up that 50% match funding. If you're from another sector, then we can still get 25% discount on all our rate card fees. So hopefully through either of those two opportunities, there's ways of making even better value marketing decisions. And finally, the marketing consultation that I've spoken about a couple of times today. Just another pair of eyes and ears, really. If you want to speak to a member of our team, please do so. Plus, there's the opportunity to get some technical reports. So we've got software that works in the same way as Google's that can show you all of the fixes needed on your website. And there will be some, so it's certainly worth taking advantage of that service. Also, if you're thinking about SEO and PPC, we can tell you exactly what that will cost you from a pay-per-click perspective, or you might just want that fresh perspective on what you're doing, and we're more than happy to help on that. So please do let us know if we can help on a complimentary consultation. But any questions anyone has? I think we've probably got 10, 15 minutes, so we're pretty much to time. Any questions anyone has, then please do let us know. And thanks for your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. I think that was excellent. I think it's given us some really good food for thought. One question I've got is, we did a webinar with you guys probably during the proper lockdown. So yeah. With your clients that you're working with, do you think the messages from a marketing perspective have now changed? Do you think it's more open now to kind of not get back to the normal, but get back towards the more salesy messages than it was before? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does. I think there was definitely a time where it would have been inappropriate to be too aggressive with our marketing messages. And there were two reasons for that. Firstly, people's priorities were very different when we were seeing all of the grim news, and there was such a lot of, so many other priorities that needed to be considered. But also, many clients didn't also have the sales team in place to actually follow up on some of those messages as well. So there's no point generating leads that can't be fulfilled. So they were the two reasons that we softened things. I think it's definitely possible to get back to a lot of what you were doing in terms of promoting products and service. But I think it's always a more sophisticated approach to actually be seen as somebody, as a thought leader, as somebody that offers more than just the best price. Because that's often a game that you don't really want to get into, because there will be people that will undercut, and it's a race to the bottom. So there will be exceptions to this, but on the whole, our advice would be about building a brand that really shows people why they should choose you, and a sale becomes a consequence of trust rather than purely going in with a very hard sales message.
I think, and add value, Dan. I think, lots of our clients have been looking at ways they can add value to their offer. So rather than just offer the black and white services they offer, it's how they can help and support their customers and their prospects with resources, with help, advice, adding that value that your competitors either can't or won't. I think that's the sort of top and bottom of what we've seen lots of our clients doing on the back of their advice we're giving them. And
I think that's what we're hoping that we're actually putting into play for ourselves as well. In the sessions such as this, it isn't a hard sell by any stretch of the imagination. But what we're trying to do is be a part of a community where, if someone does need any help, they know where to come, and we'll do the same if we've got a question about a legal or an accounting or what a HR issue, whatever it is that other service providers can offer us as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And I was very interested in that, because I think depending on what industry you're in and how you've been affected by the pandemic, I think your messages do or will change. And I think over the coming months, from say April up to now, in terms of that 3-4 month period, I think the messages have adapted, and we're seeing a lot more different things now. Where even when we scroll through LinkedIn, we're seeing a lot of different messages on there rather than just COVID. People are trying to do a bit more. And I know James Biggin at Steel City is very active on social media. I'm putting you on the spot, James. Has your message changed ever so slightly with the industry that you're in? And apologies for putting you on the spot.
No, that's fair. Thank you very much. I think what we've had to do is keep our social media really strong. And I think I'm taking it really seriously at the moment, because we have seen everything fall off a cliff back in April. What we've tried to do, though, is always maintain our personality-driven message. And I think that seems to be going down well. Even the TikToks that are mixed in with product-based ones. I think if we go too heavy on product, if we go too heavy on you need this, then right now, when people haven't necessarily got the appetite to buy because of promotion and events, then we're just going to fall flat. I think what we've tried to do is just say who we are, and that's as much as we're really doing. It's the who we are, really, and that we've still got a team that's functioning. We're not doing any of the sales stuff, really. I don't think, anyway. Maybe I'm getting that wrong.
And yeah, thanks, James. I know personally, I think your brand's very, very strong across the region, and I think what you've done on social media is make it very personable for you as a business. And I think rather than just kind of the sales approach, I think you've made it really personable, which is refreshing to see in some ways. So, but I just wondered how that kind of changed over time, or over, when I say time, I'm talking about a 4-month period at the end of the day, but that's very interesting.
I think what we've realised is that the different things that you put out there have to be judged, and you can see what response you get from the different types. And I think it's not getting too down in the dumps when something doesn't go quite right, or you think this is a brilliant post, it's going to go viral. No, it didn't. Well, actually, it's a bit of a learning exercise, and I think you've got to have the thick enough skin to appreciate that anything you do, some of it's just not going to get seen. And if you take that personally, you'll never do it again. So sorry, I did interrupt that.
No. Sorry, just with the technology, sorry about that. But no, I was just going to say that I think a lot of what James was talking about there is what we focused on in the presentation, in that really with their brand, they're talking to consumers as if they're people. They're not just talking as if they're businesses. So they're actually recognising some of what we were talking about, and saying that some of those techniques that are very successful to B2C businesses can actually be used appropriately in a B2B environment. And I think there's an added reason to do that because of what's happened over the past 6 months, but a lot of what we're talking about and a lot of what I would say people should be doing, we should have been doing anyway, but it's perhaps been accelerated slightly because, we've all had time to, sit back and think and reevaluate our decisions.
And I know, linking back to social media, really, I know posts that we've done as Barnsley and Rotherham Chamber, some of the very important government announcements and how the Chamber's adapting to support its members, I've posted personally and not really got that much engagement. Then I post a random video of me cleaning the office and it went mental. So it's kind of...
I saw that on LinkedIn, yeah.
And I've joked to other people that on the call, it's that kind of personal touch, really, that personal touch. But the message on that was positive, to say, Barnsley and Rotherham Chamber are getting back in the office. It's going to be safe. This is what we're doing, and hopefully that kind of spread across the membership base, really. So yeah, has anybody else got any questions around their marketing, about their messages that they're doing, or something they're doing a bit different that's working for them, or comments as such? I will pick on people, by the way, like I did with James. So
can I just add to what you've just said there?
Of course, Carl. Yeah,
I think a lot. I think there's also a very important part that the actual platforms are evolving. LinkedIn especially, I mean, myself and Dan were having a chat about this a couple of days ago. How people using the platforms is evolving massively. Up until 2 years ago, LinkedIn had a big issue of the average time spent on that site was less than 1 hour a week. So people were using it very professionally, networking, trying to connect with people who they might have met or even not in some instances, and not really engaging very much on the platform. Look at it today, and I think a lot of users who are coming off other platforms are using LinkedIn in a very different way today as they were a year or two ago. So it's a lot more, I think it's a lot more personable, and it's not just a hard business sell like it was. It was not just a networking tool, it's becoming more social. And I think the content that James puts out especially is capitalising on that. And I think that's a very smart move, because people do, as you've seen as well, that the content that gets engagement is the more light-hearted, sort of softer, unsailed, unhard sell sort of types of content. Almost the silly little videos and bits and pieces, and TikTok being really, emerging and coming into the platform as well has really helped. So I think, how people use the platforms and how the platforms are evolving is another consideration.
The thing to consider, though, is that everything you do needs to be in line with your brand. So a lot of SMEs won't necessarily have had the time to think about what their brand stands for. So as an agency, we're a creative business, but we're also a very professional business. So there'll be agencies that are working with pubs and bars and florists, and they can have a very different, more playful feel to their socials than we perhaps would be comfortable with, because we know that a lot of our customers are a professional services business. So although we want to show our personality, we do so within the remit of what our brand stands for. The best big company example of that, and it's a company that have really got the pandemic so wrong, is Virgin Group, in that they are a company that were, Carl's laughing because of my obsessions, but with Virgin, they were a company that were known for being playful and ethical, and taking risks. And they could put out content. Richard Branson in a bridal gown was fine. You wouldn't necessarily see the CEO of of BA in a bridal gown if they launched a new business. So it's making sure that everything you do is in line with what you see as being both the ethics, the culture, the personality, and the brand of your business. If you haven't thought about that, then that's something that you could do either by yourself or with an agency to try to make sure that works. And the reason I say I think they've had such a bad time in the last few months is that if you set yourself up as being ethical, people focused and fun, and then you furlough your staff and make mass redundancies and want government handouts during the middle of a pandemic, you're opening yourself up for the kind of criticism that I believe they've rightly had.
Yeah,
great example, Dan. It's even better now.
Brilliant, thank you. And is there anyone else that would like to just comment or come in on any comments that we've made so far? If not, I'm very conscious that people have got other things on from 11 a.m. I did joke at the beginning about James Biggin doing a bit of an exercise. I'm not 100% sure if we've got time, James, but I apologise massively on that. Unless Natalie's just turned her screen back on to kind of just get involved. But yeah, if anyone does want to kind of get involved in what James is doing, which is fantastic, he's popped the link straight in the chat box, which is great. Thanks, James. But I will draw it to a bit of a close now, if that's okay. So big thank you to Carl and Dan from Objective Creative. I think it was very informative. I think it was excellent content. And there will be nuggets in there for all businesses that are on this call, because you're all in different industries and different sizes. So you will find nuggets in there that you can link back to and reference. And obviously, please take advantage of Carl and Dan's generous offer of that conversation, that consultation where they can talk to you. So I will be doing a follow-up email with their details on, and I'll copy them in so you've all got their email addresses. So big thank you to everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the working week. The next event we've got as Barnsley and Rotherham Chamber is on the 8th of September, and that's around harnessing CSR within your workplace and how important that is at the moment. So I will be sending a link to the delegates with that. So if you do want to get involved in that one, that's absolutely fine. And also, just one last thing, I did talk to Sam, who's actually had to leave the call because he's got something else on at 11 a.m, which I'm sure most of us have. But we as chambers, and I can only speak on behalf of Barnsley and Rotherham Chamber at the moment, but I know other chambers are looking at it across the region. We're going to be acting as a representative for this Kickstarter scheme that was announced yesterday. And what a representative means is that we will be the go-to for a group of employers who are interested in taking on placement. So if you're not 100% sure what the Kickstarter scheme is, you probably will be in the next couple of days, because there's more announcements getting posted out throughout. So I would recommend, if you are interested, to contact your chamber on that, and they will help you through that process. I just wanted to plug that at the end, because that was a significant announcement made yesterday, that's all. So a big thank you to Dan and Carl. Thank you to everybody for joining us this morning. I'll follow up on an email, and I'm sure Sam will, with the Sheffield Chamber member delegates as well. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers, guys.
All right.
Dan, Carl, do you just want to hold on for a couple of seconds?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
No problem.
That's it. I've had to just remove the last two. I think they might have been swanning off somewhere, making a brew or something.
Okay, no worries.
Thanks, guys. I thought that was excellent. Really, really interesting. And it was very relevant for the different types of businesses on that call. Yeah. There was Knowles Warwick, the big firm in Sheffield. Then there was kind of your sole trader. So I think it was...
Sure. So will we be able to get a list of who attended?
You will. Let me just press stop record.